I think there's some kind of telepathic energy happening, you know. So it's interesting, and that doesn't happen if the screen is black, you know. So it seems that due to seeing other person, you know, at the same time, some kind of energy, you know, it doesn't pass through the computer. I think is from mind to mind, but to see the body of a person on a screen somehow creates the connection, you know, and there's some kind of energy happening. So if we meditate together, I think it, you know, it's almost like we are in the same room together. But then one has to be careful what kind of emanation one puts on the screen, right? So last time there was somebody driving in her car with the camera on. So we saw the inside of her car and the countryside moving in the background. So in that case, it may be better to turn off the camera, right? Because it's kind of distracting, right? So, yeah.
Venerable René, the recording is already on, so please feel free to begin whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. So we are trying to meditate on Panchen Losang Chogi Gyaltsen's presentation of Mahamudra. So after presenting how to meditate on the conventional nature of the mind, he explains how to meditate on how the I appears and how the I actually exists. And he presents 3 ways that our sense of I appears. So there is this sense of I that is neither inherent existent nor merely labeled. So that sense of I sometimes is called the conventional I. So that's the I that we use, you know, when I say, oh, yesterday I did this, tomorrow I'm going to do that, now I'm meditating. So that sense of I, not only ordinary beings have, even yogis have it, and even Buddha have it. So like His Holiness Dalai Lama says, you know, yesterday I did this, now I'm giving this teaching, and after I will have lunch with such and such. So that sense of I, even Buddhas have it. So I think it's called a conventional I because it relates, it expresses facts about our everyday life. You know, I'm doing this, yesterday I did that, tomorrow I will do that, you know. So it's just expressing facts about what's going on. So that sense of I is not necessarily inherent existent, even though our inherent existence can go on top of that. But in meditation on emptiness, one doesn't relate or, how to say, inquire very much into that one. The one that one wants to become aware is the inherent existent I and the merely label I. So the inherent existent I is the troublemaker, right? Is the root cause of samsara. And the inherent I is also sometimes called the view of the transitory collection, or let's say the wrong view of the transitory collection. And this transitory collection is a very potent word, right? So the collection means my five aggregate, right? So when I say me, I'm not just a person, I'm a collection of things. I'm a collection of the body, mind, feeling, etc. I'm a collection of thought, emotion, discernment, the collection of part of the body. And then the other word is transitory. So that's very potent too. You see, this collection is not stable, it's constantly changing. So my body, mind change from moment to moment, right? So the view of this transitory collection as inherent existent, that is the root of samsara, right? So if we see this transitory collection and the I is merely imputed on this transitory collection, then that's the correct view. So the I is merely imputed on this transitory collection. Whereas we think there is an I in there that is independent in some way from this transitory collection. There's a thinker, a doer, a feeler, that is more than just a mere imputation or transitory collection. And that's the object that doesn't exist, that the Buddha doesn't have. So we as ordinary beings, we have only two senses of I. There's the conventional I, the one that is not inherent and not merely labeled. And then we have this inherent I. So that normally an ordinary being innately has these two senses of I. Whether you are human, whether you are an animal, whether you are God, that's the two senses of I you have. Now we have been introduced to the Prasangika view, so normally we should by now have a third sense of I, a third experience of how you are. You realize that the I is a mere imputation on this transitory collection. There's no I anywhere in the body, mind. In this continuum of body and mind, there's no I there. I is merely imputed on that. So there's a very subtle sense of I there. And then, so this merely labeled I at our level is kind of mental image. You see, it's a concept, an idea. You start with that. You have this idea of a merely labeled I being imputed on the body and mind. But it's a correct idea, is a correct concept. And as you focus on that on the base of this transitory collection, this image kind of merges with the object, and then the concept, the image disappear, and you have a direct perception of the merely labeled I. You see, it's a gradual process. As your mind gets purified, your mind becomes more subtle. So gradually you kind of taste it. So that's the process, you see. So, and that happens while you're on the path of accumulation, then on the path of preparation. And then when you reach the path of seeing, then you have this direct experience. So then the mental image you had of the inherent, of the merely labeled I, disappears, and you have this direct experience. So some school says that you can have this direct perception before the path of seeing. You can have glimpse, a few seconds here and there. And that might be true. What in the 5 stage, when they say you reach the path of seeing, it means that you have total control over that experience, and you can stay for however long you want, right? So you might have some glimpse before that, that's also possible. So in this text, you see, when one says merely label, what we actually mean by that. So one has to understand what we mean by that word merely label. And it's so Panchen Losang Chokyi Gyaltsen gives 3 examples. So you see, these examples work only if you have had that experience, or is a common experience that you have. So in the old days, people would walk a lot, right? So one example he gives, a cairn, a pile of stones, right? And in the old days, you would make this pile of stones to make direction, to show you the path, So most of you have gone in trekking or walking in mountains, and it's not uncommon to see this cairn, this pile of stones, and from far away you might impute, oh, there's a person there, right? So the mind merely labels person. You see, there's no person there from the side of the stone, from the pile of stone. So the person that appears to you is a projection of your own mind. So try to get that image. You see, if you have had that before. So the person is a projection from your mind. There is no person there at all. So in a similar way, the I is a mere projection of the mind. There's no I within the body and mind. The I is a mere projection. Whereas we think there's an I in there, right? That's the inherent I. So you see, whatever in our experience is more than just a projection, that's the object of refutation. That's the one that doesn't exist. Another example that he gives is the scarecrow. So nowadays one doesn't see so much a scarecrow anymore. I remember as a child when we used to travel by car or train in the summer, it was very common to see scarecrows, in the fields. So if you have had that experience of scarecrows, you see, so from far away, when you travel, you think there's a person walking in the field. But as you come closer, well, you realize it's just a makeup with sticks and clothes and, you know, hats and things like that. So the person you thought was there is actually just projected by your mind, right? Is a mere projection by your mind. So it's merely labeled by your mind. So it comes from the mind. There's no person there at all. Just a bunch of sticks and clothes and things like that. So same thing again, the I is mere projected by the mind, is merely labeled by the mind. So you could say it's labeled by the mind. Why you say it's merely labeled by the mind is because it's only labeled by the mind. There's nothing there from its side at all. So I is merely projected by the mind on the 5 aggregates or on this transitory collection. Whatever sense of I is more than just being merely labeled by the mind, that's the inherent I. So the mind can have thoughts, the mind can have emotion, and I can be merely labeled on those thoughts and emotion. But for most of us, as soon as we have thoughts and emotion, there's an I hidden behind. There's the inherent I. This is my thought, this is my emotion. The third example he gives is when we mistaken a snake where there's a rope. So this again only works in places where it's quite common to see snakes. So if you live in a place where there's no snakes, that example doesn't really work. So for example, I lived some years at Vajrapani, and in the summer it was quite common to have snakes. And so I would see a few snakes in the summer when it's very hot, they come out. And then after having seen the actual snake, when I would walk around and I see a rope or a piece of stick, things like that, the mind would project, snake, and I would be careful and I would look closer. Oh, it's only a stick, So again, that example on the base of a stick or something that looks similar, a branch or something, the mind projects snakes. But there's no snake there at all, it's only a stick. So when you come closer, you realize, oh, there was no snake there. So the mind projects snake, the mind labels snake. So you have to, in this example, what you have to taste is how the mind projects, how the mind labels, how the mind creates an idea, a concept, an image and then projects it onto the phenomena. How it comes from the mind side, that there's nothing there objectively from the side of the object. So that phenomena you have to, how to say, experiment. That's the lesson you get from these examples, is that the mind imputes that there's nothing there from the side of the object. So you see, the difficulty of the Prasangika view is that everything is just a projection of the mind. There's nothing out there from its own side. You see, there's no object out there. Everything is just a projection of the mind. So it's quite far out. So it's very different than our ordinary experience. And you see, we might accept, oh, it's merely labeled, but then we say, yeah, it's merely labeled, but on a base. You see, we reify the base, and then we say, okay, it's not too, I mean, what's the fuss with this Prasangika view? It's quite easy, you know, I just project on a base, but the base for us appears very solidly there. But that's not exactly what the Prasangika experience is. So I think in everyday life, there are other examples with which we could come up with. You see, these are the examples in this text, and they come from, you know, from thousands of years ago. And maybe in our modern time, we have other examples that would come to mind. So for me, when I work in cities, often there is fashion shops, you know, and inside there are mannequins, you know, wearing beautiful clothes. And sometimes the mannequin moves, right? And actually is a person that fixed the display. So you know, so I took that person for a mannequin because she was in the middle of the mannequins, you know, so I mistaken her, you know, for a mannequin. And sometimes in cities, you have this kind of stand-up comedian, you know, they stand like a statues, you know, so you think it's a statue, and then as you walk past, the statue starts talking to you or moving, you know, so actually it was a person. So we project statue, we have this idea of the statue, and then the statue is a person, you know, that place being the statue. So I think many of us this kind of experience. Another one that comes to mind that happened to me sometime, you are in a crowd of people and you walk behind somebody, you know, and you think that that person's in John or Mary, somebody you know, and you come up to the person, you tap on his or her shoulder, and that person turns, and it's actually somebody else, you know, and then you feel completely confused and apologize, you know, I'm sorry, and like that. So I think that's also something, you know, how we project a person we know on somebody else. So some of you might have a few other examples that come to mind. So if one or two persons want to share what other image come to your mind, where you mistaken one thing for another, you project. Somebody want to raise their hand? Yeah, Rich?
Venerable René, for me, a mirage. I'm driving my car and I look ahead and it just looks so much like water. And my mind, I'm going, I know it's not water, but it
happens.
I have to keep checking.
Yes, that's a good one. Yes. Yeah, so the mind projects water, and there's no water there. Yes. Another one?
Hi, I have one. I can't raise my hand.
Yes, Liz, we see you. Good.
It's Liz.
Yes.
Yeah,
Liz.
hi. When I was young, I went down to the sitting room, which had big windows, and I saw what I was convinced was a devil outside the window with pointed ears. And I was absolutely terrified because I was very young, and it was dawn. And gradually the sun came up and my mother came down and said, oh, it's a hawk-moth butterfly. And you could just see its face outside the window. You couldn't see the rest of it, so it looked like a face. I mean, it was just a butterfly. But I was petrified.
Yes, good one. Yes. Anyone else?
Hi, Venerable. I can't raise my hand either. I'm Denise.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you for
good.
your class.
We see you, Denise.
I think shapes of shadows. We can see something cast onto the ground as a shadow and anticipate it being a certain shape, and then maybe turn around to see what's casting the shadow, and it's not what we thought the shadow was at all.
So we project something on the shadow that's not there. Yeah. I never had that one. Anyone else?
I think Alison has something.
Yeah, Alison?
Could it be something as simple as thinking something's going to be a delicious drink or delicious food, and you've actually mistaken it for something else and it's not? So like you've put too much salt in your porridge, or you drink red bush tea instead of ordinary tea and you pick up the wrong cup of tea.
Yes. But I mean, in that context, I mean, we project all the time, liking, disliking, good, bad. So all these things are just projection from our mind, right? They are not there from their own side. We just project. That's why we live in our own world. We project different things on the same object, right? So we think that the apple is delicious from his own side, but it's just our projection. Another person doesn't like apple.
Yeah.
So, but we think that it's in the apple, the goodness, the deliciousness. Yeah. Yeah. So when you start looking how things actually are, you realize so much just comes from the side of the mind, right? Yeah. So that's a good one, Alison. Yeah.
Thank you.
Christine?
Yes. Hello, Venerable René. Yes, something happened to me yesterday. I was in the mountain walking, and then I came back. That was the second day I went in this part of the place, and actually at first I thought it was the place, and then I get confused because they were near a beast, a small river in the mountain, we walk in, but there were no water. The day before there were a lot of water. So I thought maybe I'm not in the right place because I went there on not the same way, But for me, I recognized the place, but because there were no water, I said, no, I should be wrong. It's not here. But actually I was in the right place, but not seeing the water. But it makes me confused completely. But that was just a changing, always changing. But I didn't understand, and I thought I get lost, but I wasn't. Could feel so many things together.
Yeah.
So
how would that work with being projected by the mind?
But the projection of everything, I thought it will be the same as yesterday, and not recognizing that. And in one side, I was sure that was the place, but yeah, confused completely. Actually, it makes me, I don't know. Yeah, but it show me that everything is changing all the time, even the small river. But not seeing water for me, just I didn't understand that. But I don't know how can make the
Okay, Georgia.
I was thinking about dreams.
Yes, so in dream, yes, yeah. So in dreams, we think there's real people that we know, and actually it's just projected by our mind.
Unless we realize that it's a dream, and that is different.
Yes, if we can realize it's only a dream. Yeah. Actually, that's a yoga, in the 6 yoga of Naropa, you try to get into this lucid dream state, and use that, Lynn?
This may be the basis of what is something like a phobia for me. But as a child, I saw this beautiful yellow leaf on the sidewalk. And I was roller skating and I stopped to pick up the leaf and it flew in my face. It was a moth. And to this day, I'm creeped out is one word for it, of this particular kind of moth that often is on the casements of windows and doorways. And it makes me, I want to get away. And I know darn well it's not going to hurt me. But but the point is, I've hooked fear into that all these years. And it's strange.
Anne?
I'm fascinated by the way animals sometimes watch television and think that the animals on the television are real. I had a dog that used to do this a lot, and he used to react to the television as if the animal were either aggressive or friendly. He had his own ideas about that, but to him, they were definitely real.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting if you check when you watch movies, So for us to get the emotional response, you have to see it as real, And when you start, those which have made some movies themselves or know how movies are done, so you realize the whole thing is fake, these people don't actually have the emotions that the movies convey, the whole thing is made up, it gives the illusion, appearance of somebody being killed, somebody being in love, somebody, doing this and that. Is actually not happening at all. It's create the illusion that these things is happening there. Right? So a good movie is able to make you believe it's true, whereas it has never been true, They never married, they never had kids, they never divorced. The whole thing is just a movie, it's just fake. Right?
Actually, I do have another one, if I may. I think it will make you smile. I was on retreat once and all the food was laid out for us. And there's a great big bowl. The savouries were there, the puddings were there. There's a big bowl pretty much in the middle, which I thought was custard. So I put this onto my sponge pudding. And when I came to eat it, it was salad cream. And I ate it.
Yeah, it's Good. Yeah. So anyway, you see, each one of us has these examples from our own personal life. So you can use that, you know. We don't need necessarily to use the example, the classical example from 1,000 years ago. So you can use, you see, the key point in these examples, what is to realize is that it comes from the side of the mind. The mind merely imputes. So in these examples, the problem with those is that it's a wrong projection, a wrong labeling, a wrong imputation, right? But in reality, everything is an imputation, but the correct imputation, you know? So we take these examples because they're obvious, you know, because it's a mistake. So you project a person on this pile of stones, you know, you project a snake on a rope. So these are wrong projection, wrong imputation. Why? But why? Why these are wrong and the other ones are correct? You know, everything is a projection of the mind. So a correct projection or a correct labeling is something can perform the function you expect of that thing, right? So the pile of stone cannot be perform the function of a person, and a rope cannot perform the function of a snake. So it's a wrong imputation. But if you impute pile of stone on a pile of stone, it's a valid projection. If you impute rope on a rope, then that's a valid projection. If you impute I on this transitory collection, this valid imputation. So what you project has to be able to perform the function that that projection, that label names. And then the second criteria is that it's not contradicted by another valid mind. So in our own little bubble, we can, you know, as a child, we know we create this imaginary friend or this imaginary object, and it works for us. But if our parents come into the room and we tell them that, well, actually, you know, it's not really there what you, so it works for you, but it's contradicted by another valid mind. And then is a third criteria that one gives is that it is not contradicted by a mind seeing the ultimate nature. So that, and that, you see, if you see things as inherently existent, then it's contradicted by another mind that sees emptiness, that sees its ultimate nature. So these are Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 criteria to determine what exists conventionally, what exists. You know? So it never says that you have to find anything there. It just needs to be able to perform the function that that label imputes, and that's it. and it's not contradicted by another person, another valid perception. So these are important points to chew over. So I feel these examples, it's important to spend some time meditating on them regularly, to understand what we mean by being merely labeled by the mind. And when we say it's merely labeled, let's say, there's a fork, you have a fork, and you say the fork is merely labeled by the mind. So there's nothing there, out there, on the base that is a fork. The fork is merely, comes from the side of the mind. So it's a mere projection by your mind. And why it is the valid projection? Because you can take the fork and use it to eat. So the base is able to perform the function. And it's not contradicted, by another person. That other person can also take that object and use it as a fork. And if I would say that this fork exists there objectively from his own side, so that would be contradicted by another person that has realization of emptiness. We would say there's no fork there from his own side at all. The fork is merely imputed by the mind. So these are the three criteria to posit a phenomena according to Lama Tsongkhapa. So at our level, what we have is that we understand that the fork is merely labeled by the mind, but we reify the base. You see? So then if you analyze the base, you see that the metal is also merely labeled by the mind, and ad infinitum, the atoms are merely labeled by the mind. So everything is merely imputed by the mind. All right, so we do a 5 minutes break and then we do the meditation on this.
May I ask you a question? No? René?
Maybe at the end.
Okay, thank you.
So in order to understand how things are merely imputed by the mind, how things exist in such a subtle way that there's nothing objective out there, so Manjushri taught Lama Tsongkhapa, you see, on top of studying and meditating on that, you have to purify your mind and accumulate merit and make request to the Guru. So on the base of this Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa, we purify the mind, we accumulate merit, and with the Mitsama prayer, we make request to the Guru. So, and on that base, one's mind becomes less obscure, and then the words, the correct words that we know, for us, this concept, these words are quite heavy. And with purification, these words start having deeper and deeper meaning, and we get deeper and deeper insight. The words are the same, but because your mind becomes cleaner, their meaning unravels to you gradually. So in the space in front of oneself, imagine Shakyamuni Buddha surrounded by all the lineage lamas, from Shakyamuni Buddha down to our root guru. And if one wants to make more extensive, one can visualize all the deities and bodhisattvas and Buddhas and Dakini and so Dharma protector and so forth. And for those which have difficulty visualizing, they can just remember their root guru or His Holiness Dalai Lama. And for those which mental image are difficult, even that is difficult, can imagine the space of goodness, the Dharmakaya of bliss, emptiness, and love, and so forth. The important point is that you taking refuge in someone, you're not shouting or reciting the prayer to nobody. You recite this prayer to the Buddha, to the Guru. So you have to have the feeling that from their side, they listen to your prayer, they hear you. Oh, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all. And you imagine some light energy, some blissful energy comes from the merit field and enter into you and grant you protection, refuge, and insights. Then the next state of mind one tries to induce is the mind of Bodhicitta. So like oneself want to be happy, so it is for each and every other living being. Whoever has mind, whoever has consciousness, like me, they want to be happy, we're all equal. So you expand your mind and you imagine being in the body, mind of other people and see how, like me, they want to be happy. Then all the problems there is in the world, all my problems come down to my self-centered attitude, my selfishness. My world is so narrow when I'm selfish. It's only my little world of me, my friends, my family, my entourage. And when we are selfish, we create all this negative karma that we have then to experience as a result of pain. Whereas if we open our heart and develop this altruistic state of mind, which care for each and every living being, so that state of mind is the cause of all happiness. When we have this open heart, vast perspective, whatever action we do is a virtuous action that brings happiness. So we actually go from happiness to happiness oneself, and we benefit others so immensely. So whatever we do for the sake of all living beings is multiplied. Even if we give one morsel of food to an animal, if we do it with this wish to benefit all living beings, it's multiplied by the number of beings from whom you wish to give this food, this morsel of food. So even though materially you only give one morsel of food to one animal, psychologically or karmically, you create the same benefit of having offered food to all living beings. So this comes by the power of mind, the power of bodhicitta, the power of this altruistic intention to benefit all living beings. So Shantideva says there's no state of mind that creates more merit. There's no state of mind that purifies negative karma better. And there's no way to become Buddha without that state of mind. In the Lama Chopa, the fourth verse says, for the sake of all mother beings, I transform into a Guru deity, and thus shall I lead all sentient beings to the state of a Guru deity. So we imagine oneself being a Buddha, an enlightened being. Then we send out rays of light with Buddhas on the tip of each light rays. And these these Buddhas go to lead all beings to enlightenment. So we ourselves imagine that we are Buddha, and we imagine that we are able to lead each and every living being to enlightenment. So first giving them food and drink and lodging, whatever they need, materially, and then we give them spiritual teachings, instruction, and gradually we lead them to full enlightenment. May all beings have equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings find good rebirth and the bliss of liberation. May the ground everywhere be pure, free of roughness and awful, soft as the palm of a child's hand, smooth as polished blue sapphire. May all space with Samantha clouds of offering be offerings you and divine, both sexual and Om Namo Bhagavate Vajrasavaya Ade Samyak Sambuddhaya Tayada Om Vajrama Vajrama Vijaya Bodhicitta Vajrama Bodhi Manavata Savakama Avarana Vijaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vajrasavaya Ade Samyak Sambuddhaya Tayada Om Vajrama Mahavidya Vajrama Bodhicitta Savagama Avarana Vijaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vajrasavaya Arade Samyak Sambuddhaya Tayada Om Vajrama Vajrama Vidya Vajrama Bodhicitta Mahabodhi Manavata Savagama Avarana Vijaya You emanate on Snow White from the heart of Buddha Matre, Savior of 100 Devas joyful, Losandra all knowing, of Dharma with you to our disciple. I beseech you, please come before. In space, on lion throne, Lord to serve, my kind Guru smiling within, is the supreme field for my faith. Please forever abide and teach. Your holy man knows all phenomena, your fluent speech a sweet melody. The years of fortunate being, your form resplendent with heaven's glory. I prostrate to you who is meaningful, to see, hear, and also bring to me. Pure water and well-arranged flower, fragrant incense like perfume. As of offering real and imagined, I offer you supreme arrangement. Non-virtues of body, speech, and mind, transgressions of my three sets of mind. Committed since beginningless time, all I confess deeply for mine. In these times of degeneration, you made your life highly meaningful. Renounce all the yet worldly concerns, strive for knowledge and realization. In your extensive accomplishment, I rejoice deeply within mine. My mind, Dharmakayas clear sky, from clouds of wisdom and compassion. Is rain down vast and profound Dharma upon us fortunate disciples. I dedicate all of this virtue to the Dharma of living being, and especially that the heart teaching of Lord Sandrapari made for me. This ground adorned with perfume, flowers, Mount Meru, for walks on and imagine and offer as a pure may always enjoy His spirit. I send for the Jumandala to you, my precious Guru. Ni me tsai wen da da chen rui zi, ti me kien pe wong bu zhong ben liang, dun bu ma lu zhong zi song wen da, gang chen kien pe tu ye song ga ba. Lo zong ra ba shab la so wa de. You are Chen Rui Zi, great treasure of objectless compassion. You are Manjushri, Lord of stainless wisdom. You are Vajrapani, destroyer of Mara's army. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of Tibetan sage. Lozandrapa, to you I pray. Magnificent and precious Lord Guru, please come to the lotus and moon above my head. Guide me with your great kindness and grant the realization of your holy body, speech, and mind. Magnificent and precious Root Guru, please rest on the lotus and moon at my heart. Guide me with your great kindness and stay with me always until I achieve enlightenment. So you try to merge your mind with the mind of your guru. And on that experience, on that awareness, then you develop calm abiding. So we do that for 8 minutes. So calm abiding is developed on the base of trying to develop a continuity of not forgetting your object. And having this introspection that you are aware when you lose it, you're able to bring the mind back. And then you play with the object. Sometimes you hold it tighter, sometimes a little bit looser, and you try to find the right middle way. So within this meditative state, I will read what Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen advises us to do. So while in that foregoing meditative equipoise, unwavering, and just like a minnow, a small fish, darting about in clear water, analyze skillfully with subtle awareness the nature of that person who is meditating. The individual, the I, or the self, how it appears to your mind and how you apprehend it. Examine all these subtly and astutely. That is to say, with precise and discriminating awareness. As you examine in this way, you will discern that the true mode of being of this, the individual, the I, the person, in fact, all phenomena are mere names. They are mere construct of thoughts, merely imputed, like a snake on a stripped rope, or like a man conceived upon a cairn or a pile of sticks. So I is merely designated on my thought, emotion, awareness, and body. There's no I in there. Whereas for us, there's always an I that appears again and again if we forget that the I is merely imputed by mind. Innately, due to habit, there's an I, a thinker, a doer, a feeler that arise. But if you inquire where this I is, he vanishes like a mirage. Yet you still exist. When the I that exists from his own side, you looked for it and disappear, if you check how this I that remains exists, is a mere imputation on the base of whatever aggregate appeared to your mind at that moment. So as we are meditating, it's mostly on the awareness that is meditating. I is merely imputed on the awareness that is meditating. So due to the positive karma that we have generated by doing this meditation, the day we perfect this meditation, we're completely free from mental affliction forever. So it is extremely worthwhile to read, reflect, and meditate on how things exist. So Nagarjuna said, even having doubt about how things exist shattered the foundation of cyclic existence. So there's no meditation that is more worthwhile. So whatever positive energy we have generated, let's offer it so that very soon we get the direct experience of emptiness and start removing our mental affliction from their foundation. And may we soon, very soon, in this very lifetime, realize emptiness directly. And may the big heart of love, compassion, bodhicitta always increase. We never give up the thought wishing to benefit all living beings. and never give up our aspiration to become fully enlightened for their sake. So by doing this practice, we have created an incredible positive karma. So we can also offer it to all the people we have karmic connection with, which are sick and which passed away, like Antigone Pradel and whoever you have in your awareness, and Brigitte Steinauer, who is sick, and all the people you know that are sick. So collectively, let's think about people which we have karmic connection with. So by offering them this positive energy, due to our karmic connection, we can help them better than other people. Janju Senchu Rinpoche, Ma Kyepanam Gyuchi, Gyabanyam Pamela, Gone Gondu, Gangri Rawe Goe Chinkamdia, Pendande Wamalu Chungwende, Chenre Ziwan Tenzin Gyatso. Shabe Site Bado Beluchi. Prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Sravaka, Pratyeka, victorious Losang father and son, along with the lineage master. All the object of refuge of infinite land, please bestow the virtues and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teaching. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway to which all benefit and happiness emerge. And from other living beings, you suddenly depart to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, to the undeceiving truth of the blessing of the ocean of the three jewels and the grave wave of Bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. All right, so this session is finished. So for those which like to ask a few questions, so we can do a few questions, and for the other ones, goodbye and see you maybe next week. Yeah, Vicky?
Yes, I was thinking about the valid functions that you mentioned as being, you know, if something is agreed as a fork, then it is because it's agreed as a fork. But actually, isn't the fork also empty? And I was thinking of examples like when great masters can see, you know, like can see disgusting things as very beautiful things. And the thing with, like, for example, Lama Yeshe was such a, you know, used to explain this and demonstrate this, you know, like when I read it in Big Love, you know, when he turned, you know, people going up to Laudo and they were really craving, a lot of Americans, and they were really craving for Coca-Cola. And, you know, he turned water or something and they all agreed it was Coca-Cola, but there was no Coca-Cola on that trip. And similarly, you know, a glass of water, you know, to an enlightened being is ambrosia, nectar. To us, it's water, and to a preter or a hell being, it's pus and blood. So isn't our perception, doesn't it alter what you were saying as being the valid function of, say, a fork? I mean, if you use a fork to dig the garden, it would be a spade. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is it that solid?
Yeah. So the first point is that it's able to perform the function that one expects of that thing, right? So for us, right, we impute fork because we can use it, what we mean by that word fork. And it's not contradicted by another valid conventional mind, means from beings from the same level as you are, or the same, you know, for example, for another human beings, you know, in that realm, right? So it would be contradicted by a god or by a hell being, right? Or by a Buddha, you know, like a transcendental being that can transform one thing into another, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so it's just valid, but it's not contradicted by another valid mind of the same category as we are.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, can I ask another question? Is that okay?
Yes, yes, please.
The last bit of your meditation, I was thinking about, you know, the I, which we have a kind of a solid feeling for. But if we didn't have that solid feeling of an I, would we really have any conviction to do anything? You know, we have a conviction that I want to meditate, or I want to meditate. There's a very strong feeling of I want to do something, or I don't want to do something. So how can that be invalid when, if everybody was, otherwise we'd all be wishy-washy and not doing anything at all. We'd just be all floating around, not having any decisions or making any plans or anything. So I'm just wondering how it actually worked in ordinary everyday life.
Well, it seems that all what you described can be done by the merely label I.
But if you refute it, it doesn't.
No, we don't refute the merely label I, we refute the inherent I. So the merely label I is an I, and that I can do all the things you describe.
With validity.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's you see, that's the challenge, is to, when we negate the inherent existent I, there's an I that is left, this subtle merely label I, that is a mere imputation, but it's an I, and that I can do things. That, yeah, that I has, you know, how to say. So one of the mental factors that is arise all the time in the mind is volition, right? Or karmic formation, volition. So the mind has volition. So the mind, it's in the nature of the mind to do things, right? And when that volition is completely purified, it turns into Amoghasiddhi, right? The all, or Tara, the all-pervading spontaneous action of all the Buddhas, right? So without inherent I, there is action, because one of the mental factor that is always there is volition, karmic formation, right? So for us, it's kind of difficult because all these things is always done with the inherent I. So we think when this inherent I is gone, yes, who is going to do things, right? We don't realize that things can still happen, can be done, but with a sense of I that is much more subtle than what we commonly used. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I have to say, you see, we hear this teaching again and again, but somehow for it to get some kind of flavor, we really have to go to this emptiness of I and then ask what's left. You try to feel, but okay, this inner I is not there, so what's left? And try to feel what's left, because there's something left, right? And that I then is merely labeled on the 5 aggregates. So the 5 aggregates are there. They haven't disappeared. So they act. So yeah, so you see there's the teaching, but then it's actually trying to chew over it and try to taste it, and how to say, at the beginning it's very vague, it's very, very vague. And then slowly you have to trust your intuition and let this inner intuition unravel itself, and then slowly it becomes more precise, more taste. It gets more taste. So I think, how to say, yes, I think intuition is important. You have to trust your intuition. You have to trust your wisdom. That you see, you try to look and try to see, stare in this absence of inherent I, and then stare and stay silently there and let it reveal to you, Yeah, so you have to trust that. Not always, we don't have to always to come with our gross thought, our gross concept, our gross analysis. You have to do a little bit of analysis to go to that point, but then you have to stare into that absence and see, let it reveal itself to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you so much, Venerable, for your teaching. I've had this question since the beginning when you mentioned the 3 I. One is the conventional one is the inherent existent I, and the third one is the merely imputed I. So I kept having this understanding until your teaching is that the conventional I and the merely imputed I are the same.
Very good point. Very good point. I didn't because I didn't want to go too much into concept. So the conventional I is the general I, right? Yeah. But the one that exists conventionally is the merely labeled one.
Yes.
So because it's 2 times the word conventional, that's why I usually don't try to use both, because it creates confusion, right? So one say that the conventional I is the one that is neither inherently existent nor absent of inherent existence, but the one that exists conventionally, is the merely labeled one.
Yes.
Yeah. So good point. You're right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Amy, still there? Microphone, Amy.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was so interesting with projection. I was just thinking where it gets really hard is when someone is verbally attacking you. like for me, what you're projecting, you know, I mean, there's certainly the projection where we're not seeing things accurately, but then what you project on the person, I mean, just where I found meditation on emptiness so helpful, because then when you're in it and somebody's verbally attacking you or accusing you of something or not liking something you've done, or, and then you suddenly have this different experience of them, you know, like as if they're out there, you know, very solidly. Yeah, so very challenging. I was just thinking about that with what you were saying about projections. So
yeah, as you
and how to
say,
reduce that. Yeah, how to reduce that so much when you're in it. You know, it's always interesting.
and there's many layers, right? There's many layers of projection, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think unless one is really soaked into emptiness or soaked into dependent rising, when this experience come about, our emptiness inside out is too weak compared to the aggression or the negative emotion that arise, you know. So it's really whereas if one is really strongly into dependent rising or strongly into emptiness, so at the beginning one can transform small, you know, small negative emotion, and then gradually as one's strength becomes stronger, we can transform bigger obstacle like that. Yeah, it's a challenge, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like that's where the real work, where you can really use it in everyday life, where it really makes has an effect, can have an effect.
Yeah, I see for me is when I do the, you know, the emptiness mindfulness that Lama Zopa Rinpoche describes, you know, everything is like a dream, or everything is merely labeled, or everything is empty of inherent existence. So if I'm in that state of mind and a problem arises, I can transform it. Whereas if I'm in a completely distracted other state of mind, when this problem arises, I don't have the how to say, the wisdom or the energy or the strength to be able to transform it. So it really helps if one is able to remain in that state of mind quite continuously in everyday life. Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Venerable Amy, Liz has a question. She just can't raise her hand.
I'm sorry, me. Hi, Venerable.
Ladies.
Yeah, it's me again. There is it true to say that both the rope is empty of the snake, but also the snake is empty? The actual snake is empty of the snake. So they're actually both not existent ultimately.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Here,
and if I had the Prasangika view, which I'm just, sorry, go on.
Yeah, here why one uses that.
If I had the
Yeah, you see why we use the example of the snake, because it's so obvious. You see, we all know there's only a rope there, right? So, but instinctively, if we have the habit of seeing snake, we project snake.
Yes,
it's easy to see that example, right? But what you say is true. You know, everything is merely labeled by the mind. Nothing exists objectively out there. Yeah. Yes, Shankar? You froze. Yeah. Maybe Karen?
Thank you, Venerable. Early on, something you said really got me thinking. You said you're talking about there's no independent I, there's no doer, and there's no thinker. And when you said that, I was almost shocked, because I've heard that before, but I heard it differently this time. And so when I think about the body is not me, that seems doable. But when I think about the thinker, the I is so ingrained in thinking that I am the thinker that I can't see a little opening there. And I wondered if you could speak on that.
So you see, when I say there's no thinker, it's always when you lead meditation, you don't want it to become a teaching, you know. So you try to reduce your words so that it doesn't become a long philosophical explanation, right? So when you say there's no thinker, if you want to be more precise, you have to say there's no inherent thinker, right? There's no inherent doer, right? But you can say there's the conventional I that does, and there's the merely label I that does, right? There's the merely label I that think, and there's the conventional I that think. So you could use, you know, so when one says there's no thinker, no doer, and so forth, what one means is there's no inherent I, right? So let's say if you read Nagarjuna's text, the fundamental wisdom, so he says no this, no this, no this, no this, no this, no this. So it all refers to the absence of the inherent doer, thinker, goer, comer. I don't know what they said. There's no coming, no doing, no coming, no going. There's no inherent coming and no inherent going, right?
I think that I didn't ask the question quite right. I was thinking about the conventional thinker and how, I mean, the body, we can break the body down into many different parts. And I know we can do that with the mind as well. But I'm like a craftsperson. I do a lot of physical things. And so it's easier for me to break down the physical body into all the different parts, into the atoms and really tiny things, and realize that it's just not there. But in the thinking aspect of it, I know that there's past and present and future. You know, 1 minute to the next, my mind is saying something different.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to think about?
There's many ways. You see, the mind, when we say the mind, there's 51 mental factor, right? So the mind can be divided into 51 parts in terms of the mental factor, or the mind can be subdivided into the 5 sense consciousness and the mental consciousness, right? Or the mind can be divided into 4 aggregate, right? So you have the awareness itself, consciousness, and then you have feeling, sensation, right? Pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And then you have the discernment, the mind that is able to understand, to label, to cognize the object that it sees, right? And then you have mental formation or volition, right? So there you have the, how to say, the virtuous mind, the non-virtuous mind, and all what makes you move, you know, all what makes you think about this and that, or say this or that, or do this and that. So this is all the volition mental factor. And then this consciousness itself, right? So there's many ways to how to say, to subdivide your mind, right? So yes, so you have the thoughts, you know, the virtuous thought, non-virtuous thought, positive emotion, negative emotion, and so forth. Yeah, and then you have that the mind, you know, this present moment awareness comes from the previous one, and this one creates the cause for the next one. But if you try to find that mind, that present moment of mind, that inherent present moment of mind, you can split it ad infinitum, and you don't even find this present moment of awareness that is the foundation of creating a stream, right? So this, even the stream of consciousness is mainly labeled by the mind. There's no actual stream of consciousness existing from his own side, because you don't have a smallest moment of awareness from which you can create a continuum, right? So it's not there. So even the concept of a mind is merely imputed by the mind. There's no mind there from his own side.
I find that very scary.
Yes, it is. But that's, you see, when you go into the ultimate nature of the mind, you have to be ready to plunge into that experience. Yeah, Bill?
Yes, thank you, Venerable. Thank you so much for your teachings. I think I conceptually get the three different I's: the conventional I, the merely imputed I, the not inherently existent I. But I'm struggling a little bit with the idea that conceptually I can get that they are imputed. They are all projected by the mind. They're all created. Is it just a limitation of language that we set them up as in contrast to something? And if there is that contrast there, what are we contrasting that with? There must be something there. It seems as though there must be something that's not simply a projection of mind, with which we are contrasting these things that are projections of mind. I hope this question makes some sense.
I'm not 100% sure whether I get what you try to express, but yes, so one problem with language is that as soon as you use a word, you negate all the rest. So it goes by exclusion. When you say one thing, it means not all the rest, all the other words, all the other concept, all the other idea. So the language isolate, and also a language and word is by nature inherently existent, right? So it's a concept idea that is solid by itself, and we use language now trying to describe something that is not solid, that is not concrete, with word and concept that are solid by nature. So that's the limitation of language, but it is the only tool we have at our level, right? So yes, this problem is there, right? And we are aware of it. When we study epistemology, in Buddhism, so it's really playing with that, trying to understand the limitation of language. So what you can use it for, and what at some point you have to go beyond, what the word says, and to go to the experience, right? Yeah. But
thank you.
In Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition, he said, look, we have this tool of language, and it's like the finger pointing to the moon. And if you don't have this finger pointing to the moon, you cannot see the moon, right? Whereas in some other tradition, they would say it's beyond concept, so let's drop the concept and try to go directly to the experience. But from Lama Tsongkhapa point of view, that's very difficult. You need first to use the concept to point the finger to where you need to look at, Yeah.
So do we need the finger because it's how our minds have been trained and developed? Or do we need it just because we don't have another vehicle to describe it and start to think about it?
It seems that you need to know, you use the finger to know where to look. Otherwise, where do you look? Right? So just not thinking you know, doesn't show you where to look at, right? So from Lama Tsongkhapa's point of view, you have to use thought to their extreme to show you where to look at, and to see not only where to look at, but to look how to understand, to digest what you try to see, you know. So you use it to the extreme, you know, and then that leads you then to the leap of the direct experience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Shankar?
Oh, hi, Venerable. Thank you again. I seem to have lost my internet connection right in the middle of that. So going back to what I was saying, so it seems like this is, I don't know, a relatively recent phenomenon. It seemed like in the past, when I was doing meditation on the I, that's my main thing that I do, on the self, and, you know, conceptually understand the Prasangika view, and I seem to be making progress. But lately, when I seem to have a better, I don't want to say direct because it's not direct, certainly, better, you know, non-conceptual understanding, let's say, like, for example, if I generate the I and to go through the process, you know, I get this feeling of, wow, could this really be true? And I have this sense of, you know, not just this conceptual thing, right? I mean, like, kind of like a slight amount of shock, maybe, that this thing really that I've hold so firmly is not really there, right? But then, interestingly, what happens is I seem to fall into the Chittamatra view, right? So, you know, then when I look into, I continue to kind of try to bring that up, and, you know, as it dissipates and I look into it, so forth and so on, and try to, you know, go through the process again as, you know, to regenerate that, you know, that feeling. I think it seems almost there got to be something there, that something goes from life to life and so on. You know, the classic Chittamatra thing, you know, there's something there, there's something very subtle. It must be really subtle. I can feel it in my body almost, blah, 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 right? So how do I get past that?
Well, like I said before, there appears to be a mind there, but if you analyze the mind, you cannot find the mind, right? You cannot find a smallest moment of awareness that creates this stream of mind. There's no mind, there's no objective mind, or there's no inherent mind, right? So to create a stream, you have to have one moment, right? You have to have a moment there. But if you don't have a moment there, how do you create a stream? Right? So there's no moment of awareness there, and there's no stream of consciousness there. Right? So yes. So you see, why the Chittamatra positive stream of awareness, or for those which, how to say, accept 6 consciousness, they would say the stream of consciousness, and those which accept 8 consciousness, they would speak about the store consciousness, or the alaya vijnana. Why do they need that? It's because they need to have a place where karma imprint are stored, right? They need to create a link between the time you created the action and the time of the result, right? So you have to have an objective consciousness in which the karmic imprints are, right? So that's why they posit that is in terms of how to make sense of karma, right? So for the Prasangika, it's completely crazy, right? So there's no mind there. So how does karma function? Right? So there's no mind there objectively that is the store in which the karmic imprints are, right? So how do you link a cause with its effect?
Right. Thank you. You know, oh, sorry.
That's the challenge, right? So they speak about disintegrateness. You know, you might have heard that. So for the Prasangika, they can explain karma, cause and effect, without having a mind that exists objectively there, right? So the continuity of the energy of the action will go on till the conditions are met for it to transform into a result. For Prasangika, it doesn't need to have a base on where the karmic imprints are stored.
You know, I thank you. I'm going to try the look for the mind when that feeling, when that permanence arises again. You know, it's funny, theoretically I understand how the Prasangika view of karma and so forth and so on, but when I try to do it experientially, but that's the difficulty, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Venerable,
Yes,
I am incredibly grateful for your teachings and knowledge. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, it seemed like you were referring to a text today.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a text that we could have or could refer to as well?
Well, it's Panchen Losov Chogi Gyaltsen's. There's the root text on Mahamudra and his auto commentary. So there is a various translation, and actually you can download them online. There is the one from Alex Berzin, which is quite maybe a 20 years old translation. It's a bit difficult because you have to get used to Alex Berzin's terminology, which is quite peculiar and unique. So there is another translation by Thupten Jinpa that is more recent. That's the one I use during this course, and I don't know whether it exists as an individual text. It is, I found it in this book, you see here.
Stages of the Path and the oral transmission.
Yes,
Thank you.
Path and oral transmission by translated by Thupten Jinpa as in the wisdom collection. And there's also another short text. I don't know whether I have it here. So there's a I don't remember his name now. There's another Western person that teaches Mahamudra quite often. So he translated the root text and part of the auto commentary, which is, so these are the ones that I know of. There might be other one, there are always new texts coming up, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's all for today. So it's good that that you continue to inquire and slowly, we become beautiful beings. Okay.